Hey everybody, this is Andy Hall and you're watching Best Advice Ever. This is the show where people come on and talk about the best advice they ever got professionally and the best tip they ever got on how to be a better person. With me today is Ian Harris. Ian Harris is a comedian. He's a mixed martial arts trainer. Is that the official term, Ian?
Yeah, that's it. Coach, trainer.
Trainer, dad also.
Yes, I'm a mixed martial arts. No, sorry, yes.
Right. Yeah, you've been on the Naked Dine podcast a couple of times. It's good to have you on Best Advice Ever.
Yes, good. Thank you for having me.
Great. So what do you want to start off first? You want to start off with the best piece of professional advice you ever got, or do you want to start off with the best tip you ever got to be a better person?
Actually, let's start with the professional because in some way it actually ties back in because I didn't listen to it. So when you get the second part,
like that. Go ahead.
So yeah, like we've said, but we talked already a little before that it's sometimes with me, my advice, like I can't even remember who said things or where they came from, or it was just general advice that was floating in the ether that I think professionally there's something that I've heard for my entire career, which I still think the people who say it are kind of full of BS. But the core of it is, it took me many years to learn, and that's it. As a comedian, and I guess this applies to other things, that they always would say, I'd go to LA, and I'm from San Francisco, I'd go to LA, and it was just like, how funny are you? How good are you? Can you make an audience laugh? Whatever the deal is. And you would go on these and some of these club owners would be like, so what's your voice, man? And I was like, what is this? Some sort of pandering? I have to have a message. And I'm like a comedian. My voice is, I'm funny. Put me on stage. That's all and that's, I think that is right as a comedian. You should just be funny. And I always just threw that aside. Like, well, what's your voice? What's your, I forgot, point of view? That was the one. What's your point of view? And I'm like, my point of view is I'm funny and you laugh. That's my point of view. And I always dismissed it because, I don't think they necessarily knew. I think it's a buzzword that they threw out there, and I don't think they truly understand it. I just think that's something that was an easy thing for them to say and not have to book you or whatever. But I took 5 years off doing comedy when I had my daughter. I didn't want to be on the road full time. I was on the road like 40 weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
And was staying in LA. My manager wanted me in LA, and I was not doing stand-up comedy. It went from not going on the road to not doing it at all. Mm-hmm. 2011, I decided to get back into comedy. And I just started going up on stage and just doing what I wanted to do. And my thought was, wait a second, if I don't have to do this for a living anymore, I don't have to worry about what anybody thinks or cares. And if somebody says, oh, what's this, or what's your point of view, or ooh, that's not going to work in my club, I can't book you. I was like, who cares? I don't need the work. I don't need the money. So I just started going up and talking about religion and skepticism and things that I was personally interested in, knowing that I might piss off clubs in Ohio and never work there. Okay, fine. Who cares? So I started writing, and then I thought, okay, the whole point of coming back on stage was to show my daughter, who is now 5 or 6, this is what daddy does, because she's never known me as a comedian.
Sure.
So my point was I wanted to put together a cool hour, do a show, record it, have a video at home, a DVD that she can watch when she's older and go, oh, that's my dad. That was my entire point of getting back into comedy. And I started trying to put together that hour and doing some touring and setting up my own shows and getting people who might be interested in it and writing to what I like writing about. Oh, this is a good joke. I'm just going to talk about this, even if it's not funny. Let's see what people think about it. And within a year, not even a year, I had like 2 hours of material. It was like my most prolific time. And some of it was great. Some of it wasn't.
Sure.
But I found that I was writing from just what I wanted to talk about. And everyone was like, wow, this stuff is so well thought out. Oh, wow, you're so prolific. My wife was like, this is the best material you've ever written. And I would go up on stage, and my sister, who'd seen me since day one, was like, that's the best performance I've ever seen you give, And I was, because I was passionate about it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, oh shit, I've got a point of view. I have that thing that when I get up on stage, everyone knows who I am. And I know that's pigeonholing and whatever, but it doesn't have to be pigeonholing, but it definitely is. That's who you are. This is your point of view. This is your not message, but your voice.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh crap, I have a voice. As much as I resisted having a voice, I didn't really get good at me until I had a voice. And yeah, before I was talking about my family and I was talking about stuff that was really personal and true to me. And I was talking about my dad and all these kind of things. But when I look back at it now, I go, yeah, it was still kind of generic. Everyone talks about their family. Everyone talks about their upbringing. Everyone talks about relationships. Women are different than men. That's really not a point of view when everyone does it. What makes it different about you? Like if your wife does the same thing as everybody else's wife, and that's why people go, oh, my wife has too many towels. It's not really a point of view, right?
Right.
And then and so I look back and I go, wow, I wish I had known how to take that advice when it was given to me. But I think it would have been fake had I actually taken it. I think it's the kind of advice that you realize in retrospect, oh, that's what they mean, and that's a great idea.
Do you think when you were first starting out in comedy, when you're talking about the generic stuff, do you think you were building up your technical skills at that point?
Yeah, I mean, and I also think there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. There are tons of people who, they have a voice that's all they do. I mean, people love Bill Burr,
Yeah.
and it's funny because what's considered the hackiest stuff in the world is comparison comedy. Black people are different than white people. Men are different than women. Like that super easy comparison. Men do this, but women do this. Yay! Like that's the easy. But nobody that I know of considers Bill Burr to be a hack.
Yeah.
But everything Bill Burr does is, oh, my wife is brutal. My wife does this. It's brutal. And it's
Right.
like all he's doing is relationship material for the most part. Not all, but that's a huge chunk of what he does. But because he comes at it from his perspective of, this Boston guy who's like, no, guys, no, it's not, whatever. I'm the victim here, or whatever his deal is that, um, that's his point of view, and that's fine. And it's like, so, and there's a lot of people out there where I watch it and I go, well, it's nothing really different than anybody else is doing, but they're doing it from their point of view or
Sure.
from they've owned it on their level and it feels genuine and real. And, when you watch a guy like Bill Burr, it feels genuine and real. It doesn't feel like, oh, this guy's just pandering to, to do relationship material or whatever. And not to say that there aren't tons of people out there that pander and do easy material that are famous. There's quite a few of them.
Oh yeah.
And I don't think that necessarily having a point of view is necessarily going to lead you to a path of fame and vice versa. But I do think it's, if you care about integrity and you care about doing what is good and you want to increase your chances of people liking you and seeing you and going, ooh, this is different. I know who this person is.
Yeah.
Then I think it's definitely a huge, it's definitely a good thing to have. And I just think you just feel better about what you're saying. And so, yeah, I mean, I was definitely honing my skills, but I was also finding what my voice is and what can I say? And does it matter if I say something and people don't like it?
Yeah.
That's all part of it. So yeah, it's all part of the learn. And yeah, getting those skills of being able to get up on stage and if they don't like it, turn it into something else, and now how can I do all of that stuff and still keep it from my voice? Can I go back and do talk about my dad?
Yeah.
And can I make it still fit with what my point of view now? So
Right. Shooting the material through the prism of
exactly.
who you are as a person, and it could be transformed in that way. Yeah, that's
Right.
interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's it's like when you write a it's very similar to, I've written a lot of screenplays and stuff, and I always thought that I never liked structure in that seemed formulaic. I'm not
Sure.
I don't want to be a formula. I don't want to write just typical formula script, high concept, whatever.
Sure.
And then I read Sid Field's book, and he just did this plot point 1, this act, boom, plot point 2, boom, 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 at this page, plot point 3, and then he suggested this little pyramid of plot points.
Sure.
Write an outline, and then also character bios, your character, and he was just dumb stuff that I still think is dumb, like what's your character's favorite ice cream flavor? It's like, well, why does it matter if we never talk about ice cream in the script?
Yeah.
But the heart of that is, know who your character is. Write a little biography. This guy was, this guy was beat up as a kid. This guy was, was always picked on for this, blah, blah. So that way, later on in life, if he's the CEO of the company in your script, you can, what would a guy who was picked on as a kid, how would he react in the situation? And though it's the same kind of thing, those things are actually, after I did it and did an outline and said, okay, who is this person? Who is this person? I would write some dialogue and go, you know what? How can I change these words to make it fit a guy who is this guy? Because right now everybody's me.
Yeah, exactly. Because just as you found your own voice for comedy, you have to find the character's voice.
Right.
Screenplays or any kind of fiction, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. So it really, I'm very resistant to structure and the system, I guess, by nature. So it took me a while to get in line with some of the things that actually are necessary. And again, maybe not to the extent that they say. And people like to say things that they don't truly understand. They just parrot,
Yeah.
It's your voice. Do you even know what that means? No, but I heard somebody else say it. So it's like, which makes you lends credence to my, it's all BS. But then you find out later, you go, wait, there's something to this, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, definitely. I think this is a good point to talk about the best personal tip you ever got.
One, I would say that, being a skeptic, and this kind of plays into this, I've always been a skeptic on some level. Like, I didn't know I was a skeptic. I didn't call myself a skeptic, but when I was a kid, my mom was a psychic, and my mom would talk about ghosts and all these kind of things. I think we've talked about this before. And I kind of believed it in that, it's like when you grow up with religion, which I didn't, but people grow up with religion, and it's like you believe it because your parents every day are, Jesus this, Jesus that. It's not like there might be this guy named Jesus,
right?
And you can figure it out later. It's just like, that's the TV. That's Jesus, right? So with my mom, it's like, ghosts do this. Oh, is that what ghosts do? Okay, cool.
Sure.
But I was always like, well, this doesn't make any damn sense. So my whole life, I was like, when I was young, it was like, could ghosts be some sort of energy? And why are they holding on to the form of humans? And how are they keeping their consciousness? Like, I would think these things.
Sure.
Ghosts are real, but how do they fit into reality? Because they don't seem to.
Right.
And that's how I never had any other beliefs, but those types of things I had to figure out, these don't really make sense. Sure. And when I was 19, I was at junior college in Santa Cruz, and I already knew I wanted to be a comedian, and I was actually studying anthropology and some other things, and I took some theater classes, and I saw this class called Argumentation and Persuasion. I love to argue, and I thought, it's a speech class. It'll be great for me to get up. I'm kind of shy, and this is going to be great for me to get up on stage, get up there and talk. Turns out it was a class in skepticism. And the guy was a writer. He had written for like Skeptical Inquirer and I think Skeptic Magazine and some other things. And he taught this class. It was just on skepticism. And we did we did like the astrology test that you see where like astrologer comes in and then the next week she comes back and hand your report to the next person. Is it the same one? Yes, whatever. All those things. We watched documentaries about James Randi. I was introduced to all this sort of stuff. And I remember just, I'm super argumentative. And my whole life, people have always said, "Oh, you always think you're right. You always think you're right. You always think you're right." Which I always find funny because nobody thinks they're wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Who goes, "Well, I really believe this, but I know I'm wrong about it." What? Well, then why would you believe it? But one thing that it forced me, and again, it took me several years, but it goes back to this thing with the comedy. It forced me to look at myself and go and be self-aware. And it taught me that you have to shed your ego, and you have to be able to say, I was wrong. I am wrong. Let's move on. So many people will hold on to something so long because they can't admit they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie and say it's easy. It's still hard. It's still hard when somebody shows you you're wrong, or you say something or you post something and someone goes, "Hey man, you forgot to fact check that. Here's Snopes. It's wrong." And you got to go, yeah, I did something bad. But being able to do that, and that's a skill that takes practice. Being able to do that which is the heart of skepticism and being truly open-minded, being able to say, look, yes, I was wrong. I made a mistake, or I didn't have all the information. Now that I have more information, I'm going with this other idea, this other thought, this new thing that I've learned. And it comes down to, do you want to have the right answers in life, or do you want your answers to be the right ones?
Yeah.
And those are two different things. And that, it's like, if I'm religious and I want Jesus to be the answer, I'm going to do everything I can to make Jesus the answer. Whereas if I just want to know what happened, how did the universe come about?
Yeah.
And I find out it wasn't Jesus, I have to be able to go, all right, well, I was wrong. I spent 20 years thinking it was Jesus. Okay, what is it then? Sorry, everybody, I was wrong. And if I feel like an asshole and if people go, oh, you were wrong, ha, ha, ha. Okay, I've got to be able to take that. So being able to go, hey, you know what? My stance was incorrect. And now I'm moving on to a new one that has more basis. It has more evidence, more logic, more whatever it is. Now I've got this because I was wrong. I think that's probably one of the greatest things I've learned. And I learned it starting with that class, and then learned it being involved in the skeptic community and just, and being wrong a lot, and having people who are way smarter than me, or at least way more educated than me, or whatever, on a topic go, yeah, dude, that's not how it works. Let me show you how it works. And I say that the other thing, the second piece that I would say that kind of ties in that a little bit is that, not that anybody ever told me this, but I observed it growing up. I think we need to make moral or ethical decisions. And that's how you make logical decisions, or that's how you make fact-based decisions. But fact-based stuff doesn't always lead you to the most ethical answer. Sometimes the right thing to do scientifically might not be, the most ethical thing to do, unless you put one factor to it. And that is, what is the greatest good for the greatest amount of people? Even if that means not you. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're a devout Christian and you're super against abortion, but you realize that violates millions of other people who don't have your viewpoint, as an honest human, American, whatever you want to call yourself, as an honest person who realizes that they don't want their rights stamped on us and that they don't want to hurt anybody else, you should responsibly vote against your own best interest for the greater good, because especially if it doesn't affect you. If they're forcing you to have an abortion, that's a different story. But if it doesn't affect you, but it affects others, and it affects far more people, even if you personally don't agree with it, you have to, as a responsible human being, say, you know what? For the greater good, I'm going to say, go ahead and do your thing. And I might still go protest.
Sure.
I might still start a blog. I might still do weekly videos about how abortion is wrong. But stopping you from having one would be completely irresponsible and immoral and unethical. Mm-hmm. If it's not hurting anybody. Now, I realize that in that case, they think it's hurting a fetus or whatever, it's murder. But that's a hard thing to do as well. And I think that if you put skepticism through the filter of the greater good, you almost always are going to get the right answer. You always have that idea of what's moral or ethical or what you always have that to contend with. So when you put the filter of skepticism and logic and fact-based in there, you can get the right answer. I mean, like I said, sometimes the right answer means it's not the ethical thing. However, if you're always putting it through the ethical filter, the greater good filter, and you're always putting the greater good through the skeptical filter, you're going to get the right answer. So, I mean, you could, depending on where you come from, you could look at climate change, and if your perspective is, what makes me the most money? Mm-hmm. You can get to a logical, fact-based answer that screw the environment.
Yep.
I'm an oil company.
Yeah.
But if you say, well, wait, what? That's me. What's going to benefit the most amount of people? How about not dying or not having, crazy heat waves and natural disasters? Then you can look at the facts and the logic and go, okay, we need to do something about climate change. Here are the causes. How do we stop it? Here, you can do it that way. So you can come to either answer.
Sure.
But it comes down to what is your point? What is your ethical standpoint?
Mm-hmm.
And what is your goal? And I think those you put those two things together, and you're more than likely always going to get the right answer. And there is a right answer in that case. And the least amount of false beliefs I can have,
Yeah.
then the better I'm going to be.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, it's and I think that's the best. Those two filters are the best way to get there.
That's a good way of looking at it. Well, I think that's a great place to stop. Ian Harris,
Cool.
comedian, mixed martial arts dude.
Yes.
There. Where can people find you online?
IanHarrisComedian.com or SkepticComedian.com, and then I'm on all the social mediums. Although I'm probably more active on Facebook and because I'm old.
All right, I hear you.
And yes, and I prefer to talk in words instead of pictures, so I don't go on the Instagram as much. But it's Ian Harris. You can easily find me. I'm a bald guy with glasses, and it's always some iteration of Comediocre one, that's it. But look for me. I'm also touring a lot usually, so I come to your town hopefully, and if I'm there, come out and see me.
Great.
And also one more thing, if I can say, please go to I have a podcast called Critical and Thinking. It's myself and Ty Barnett. So if you look up Critical and Thinking with Ty Barnett and Ian Harris, please check in, subscribe. It's very political. It's comedy. We're both comedians, but we have a hard time right now in this day and age not going political. So, but if you like that kind of stuff, it's pretty good, and we have really good guests on sometimes, and sometimes we just get on and rant with ourselves. So, Critical and Thinking with Ian Harris and Ty Barnett. Check that out.
All right. Well, thanks again, man. It's great having you on.
Absolutely. My pleasure.